Welcome to this psychophilosophical spoken word internet series, Inalienable Paradise. This is aimed to providing stories and tactics to help people, even in the most traumatic and inescapable of circumstances, to help people with things universally accessible overcome such circumstances or feelings of terror, worthlessness, and helplessness. We hope we will provide the help that so many people need, and that you will find at least some value in this. Thank you. Welcome to anyone who may be tuning in on this. There has been a massive delay since my last episode of this series. It's been about over 2 months, I think, and I will tell you why, and I will tell you a possible anecdote to that, because I know this is not just something I'm going through. It is because of something I've talked about many times in the past, and I still talk about it all the time, is acrasia, trading what I want the most for what I want in the present moment, as Napoleon beautifully said. Perhaps maybe I have been setting unrealistic goals this whole time, and maybe you have too if you're struggling with this. So that's why I thought, why not take a philosophical concept and maybe tweak it a bit to where it can actually be incorporated into our lives. And that is called Hofstadter's law. It was announced by a enormously talented scientist, mathematician, linguist, Douglas Hofstadter, who has become famous from his book, An Eternal Golden Braid, which is quite the book. I think that book alone will be enough to last you 5 years. So he came up with this almost comical self-referential law, which the most simple definition is as follows as he wrote it. It always takes longer than you expect, even when you take into account Hofstadter's law. Now, of course, this is a clear definition, but of course, on the other hand, it might lose some of the clarity of its meaning because it's self-referential. So here is a possibly influenced, extra generous, heterogeneous source by Ashley Brilliant, which says, it always takes longer than you expect, even when you expect it to take longer than you expect. Which is a much more clear way of putting it. So, to capitalize on this, I will be reading an article from Psych Central, written by Jane Collingwood, titled Hofstadter's Law and Realistic Planning. This is aimed to be towards people who either A, might be struggling with goals on their own accord based on acrasia or task paralysis, and overload, and for people who maybe are possibly in dire situations, and although they may not see the light at the tunnel yet, that doesn't mean the light at the end of the tunnel is not there. So I hope you all enjoy. You've probably heard of Murphy's Law. If anything can go wrong, it will. But Murphy has a kindred spirit in author Douglas Hofstadter. Hofstadter's Law. If you've never heard it, it states, it always takes longer than you expect, even when you take into account Hofstadter's Law. Computer programmers say Hofstadter's Law rings true to their work on complex projects that takes years to complete. We've all experienced how a project expands to fit the time available. But why do we tend to underestimate the length of any given task? By the evening, the goals in our morning to-do list seem laughable. This may be because we tend to set too many goals. In addition to wanting to get a project done, We also want to keep up with our favorite TV program, cook nice meals, and stay in touch with friends. But to successfully reach any goal, we need a reason to place it higher than our other goals and desires. Then we can allocate our resources more efficiently. It sounds easy enough, but perfectionists, procrastinators, and those under tight deadline pressure all have unique problems giving themselves enough time. Problems often arise because of unforeseen delays such as illness. Vacations may have been planned and non-refundable tickets bought long before a project, with a due date in the middle of the vacation, of course, even came into being. A team member may unexpectedly accept a new job with another company before the project can be completed. One approach is to avoid planning altogether and just change course as needed based on real-time feedback. Some people advise, take your best guess as to when you'll be done, then double it. Perhaps you can remember how long similar tasks have taken previously. If nothing you have done before is comparable, ask an experienced person how long similar projects have taken them. It may not be the response you're hoping for, but it will be accurate. Psychologists working in the area of human planning decisions have found that our plans are typically based on best-case scenarios and, quote-unquote, yield overly optimistic predictions of completion times. When study participants were asked to come up with more pessimistic scenarios, they could do so when predicting someone else's completion times, but not their own. The researchers in this study concluded that, quote-unquote, pessimistic scenario generation is not an effective debiasing technique for personal predictions. Nonetheless, good time management skills can help. There are many such tools for daily use, such as checklists, post-it notes, diaries, calendars, personal or electronic organizers, and appointment books. Time often is lost because of disorganized filing systems, lack of an in-tray system, or unnecessary paperwork. It also helps to keep meetings focused, minimize, as much as possible, the number of phone calls you make and the number of times you check your email, and regularly back up your work. Crucially, check at regular intervals that you are working on the most important task. That is, the one which will have the greatest positive impact on your project. I would just say your life, and that's me going on. There is a temptation to clear up the smaller, easier tasks on your list first. Fight it. If you are stuck, try to predict the consequences of doing or not doing each possible task. This long-term perspective is essential because it means you will get the highest possible return for your effort. Stepping back to take this point of view and acting on it soon will become a new habit. To motivate yourself, imagine the satisfaction and pride you will feel after completing the task. And I'm going off again. I think that's too vague. So I would go a little more specific and just say things like visualizing or having an image board of what the consequences will be, like pictures of other people following your footsteps. I think you have to be specific when it comes to these problems. So back to the article. Decide exactly what you want to achieve. Then gather necessary resources. Become familiar with the subject matter and acquire core skills to achieve it. Question why you haven't achieved the goals already. What is holding you back? This limiting factor needs consideration. As you progress, identify the times of day when you seem to be working best, and use these times for the most demanding tasks. Think, how can I be more productive? Refuse to let setbacks knock your optimism and confidence in reaching your goal. After all, the only way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time. So that is the article that I just read. So, of course, there were parts of that article that were not so applicable to a lot of people, or maybe overly fawning. But I think there is a great utility in Hofstadter's law. And I think it's just, this is also vague, but I think this can apply to much more people, is that we often do forget to see the light at the end of the tunnel. We often forget that the stars are there when the sun is out. There is a beautiful quote about this. I'm going to go find it. Here it is, actually. It is by Ramakrishna, the Indian guru. It is one of the most beautiful quotes I have read in recent times, and I think could apply to so many people in a wide variety of circumstances. I think this is used, of course this is mostly used in a religious context, but I think this can also be used in a context where anyone needs hope. People in desperate situations, people, those birds in the cages that need to keep surviving and hopefully know that someday they will escape. It will just take a while. So the quote is as follows. You see many stars in the sky at night, but not when the sun rises. Can you therefore say that there are no stars in the heavens during the day? Because you cannot find God in the days of your ignorance. Say not that there is no God. And I would say, just to maximize applicability, that I would replace the word God with hope. As Dostoevsky also said, to live without hope is to cease to live. And I find that to be very true and relevant. I hope you enjoyed this. This is also kind of a self-referential episode because due to my poor time planning recently, I have not been able to make a new episode of this series, which I would love to keep investing myself into. But the truth is I live a busy life, and I'm not sure how often I can do this, but I will try as much as I can with my limited time and my limited willpower and energy. But I hope you all enjoy this series and this episode, and I will talk here again. Thank you.